everybody, welcome to Two Techie Travelers. Today we're going to be talking about 3 of the best parts about RV life, 3 of the worst parts about RV life, and 3 things that we found surprising since we got started. Tara, tell us about some of the good things.
Yeah, so one of the first really good things is we get to go a lot of different places, we get to go on a lot of different adventures, and to see things that we wouldn't otherwise have seen, like our West Virginia trip. We've also seen really unique parts of Missouri that we wouldn't have seen if we hadn't been in our camper.
Yeah. Something that I personally have found to be pretty nice is the fact that cleaning only takes about 2 hours. We can clean top to bottom everything in here in about 2 hours. Compare that to the house we were living in before we got started, and it's a significant difference where you might spend an entire weekend cleaning and at the end still feel like things aren't very clean. But in here, it's not the case. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. And I think another really big thing, living for that adventure and seeing all those things is we don't really have to live for the weekend anymore. We're able to do these fun and exciting things during the weekdays, so we can do those during the evenings or go on little morning adventures, those sorts of things. And so we're able to do that and enjoy the weekdays instead of just waiting for Friday and Saturday to have a good time. So.
Yeah, especially out here on the East Coast where I don't necessarily have to work until 11 o'clock. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is really nice. And we're able to go see things in the morning, and people aren't really out and about then because most people are working during those hours, especially depending on where we're at. So, yep. So some of the worst parts about full-time RVing, I don't think they would ever deter us from RVing. But they're definitely things that are not as fun.
Yeah, so the first thing is the appliances and just other things in campers and RVs, they're not quite to the same standards as a traditional home. So things like your oven, your microwave, they all work, but they don't work as well. We've noticed our refrigerator, it will either get too cold or too hot, or it stays too hot. We've been playing with it. We're slowly dialing it in. We tend to keep it colder than hotter because that seems a little better for food safety by a little bit. But then our oven it doesn't get hot all around it, so it's really hard to bake stuff, even pretty easy stuff like frozen pizza if that's what you want. It's hard to kind of cook that type of stuff in the oven.
Yeah, definitely. And part of that difficulty, it's not cooking all the way through, and then you're not trusting it. So I think that's really not a fun thing to happen in a camper. Another thing is we have to really keep on top of all of our consumables that we need, such as propane, fresh water, and drinking water. When you are, in a familiar area or when you're in your home, you don't necessarily think about the water that's coming through when you're washing your hands in the bathroom, or the amount of water that you use when you're washing your dishes, or if you had a dishwasher, if you're running that. But in our camper, we have to think about every ounce of water that comes in and goes out. So whether that's water for our dogs, water for the dishes, as well as things like propane. So when we turned on the heat, as the cool weather started to come in, we went through propane really quickly, which meant then we couldn't cook on our stovetop. So everything has to be pretty well monitored, as sometimes you're really far away from being able to get those things.
Yeah, so another, on the same topic, dealing with, your gray and black tanks, obviously not pleasant. It would be better if the meters in RVs and campers, which for those of you who are looking at this, the sensors that tell you how full your tanks are, just completely ignore those. You'll get a feel for how full your tanks are, and you can always visibly check on certain elements. So
we'll leave it to that.
Yeah. So, and then I would say that the third not so great part about RV life is finding sites with good, reliable internet, especially for those of you who are looking at doing this while working remote or working just at all, and you need internet connection. It can be a little tough to find a site before you actually get there to know how good it's going to be. Coverage maps from the providers are pretty much useless. They say that there's coverage everywhere, but when you actually get there, either you find that there's no coverage or you find out that the coverage is really bad and you don't have a usable signal. There is a website which I will recommend, which is called cellmapper.net. I will put a link to that in the description. I have found that to be pretty useful. It's crowdsourced data about what you can actually expect for connection and coverage, and it does a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but nothing is. But it's been a pretty good way for me to check to see whether or not we'll probably have coverage in an area. And then some of the things that we found surprising since we moved into the camper. Not everything went the way we thought it was going to.
Yeah.
We were caught by surprise on a few things.
Yeah, no, we definitely were. So I think one of the really good surprising things that we have found is that we eat at home a lot now, which is great. So we are not going out and grabbing any meals because a lot of times it is more difficult to find, to go through a local Chick-fil-A or that was one of our favorite spots, or like Raising Cane's or things like that. We are usually pretty far away from those things, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. So it's not convenient to go down to get one of those things for dinner or lunch or breakfast or, whatever meal that we're not wanting to cook. So we have made sure to get as many groceries as we need so that we can stay in our camper and eat at home. And then when we want to spend money on going out to eat, we can, go to those local businesses instead of the chain restaurants.
Yeah. Yeah, and the food at home is always better. Home cooked, everybody has that feeling. And honestly, once you're on the road, picking up groceries and you're actually going through those, it's really not that bad. And then cooking at home, it's just a lot more convenient for those of you that are going to be cooking outside on a grill a lot. It's a really, really good experience too, to just be able to be outside cooking and seeing the view of wherever you decided to park. Especially if you're out west on like BLM land, cooking with a view is got to be pretty nice.
Yes.
So another thing that we found pretty surprising is twofold. So the first is how much we have actually enjoyed finding spots to go do photography and drone photography. Tarra did a lot of photography beforehand. Drone footage is something that we just started doing not too long before we actually moved into the RV. And we have found it to be extremely fun to do. So it's something that we like. It's probably not for everybody, but even if you just have your cell phone, going out and taking some really cool pictures is nice. And then something that we found with respect to that is some of the drone and photography laws in state and national parks and just states and across the country, it's pretty interesting. Some states are more difficult at getting permissions to film in certain state parks, and you can't film at all in national parks without permission. We have a video that's going to be coming out talking about this topic in more detail shortly, and we'll cover that in a lot more detail then.
Yeah, but it's really fun to get out there and take pictures and do some of the drone footage. I think we've always gotten really great response from anyone who's kind of in the area. They're like, "Oh, what are you guys doing? Taking pictures, like drones? Who are you? Like, why are you taking pictures?" But they're always really kind, and I think that's cool. I think one of the great things is being really respectful to the area, and then I think we see that respect back from the locals that they realize we appreciate the area and what it is, and want to capture it in a great light.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So we highly encourage you all to stay tuned, subscribe, and look out for the drone video that's going to be coming out shortly.
Yep, and be sure to follow us on all of the social media channels. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, and then subscribe to us here on YouTube at Two Techie Travelers.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time.